Hello, welcome everyone. This is our first webinar in a series of three around how to use PickFu with AI tools like Claude to generate image, copy, design variations, and then test them and validate them with real consumers. We're going to be talking about how to use the PickFu MCP server to connect to AI assistants. And then we're going to be running through a full main image optimization playbook. So testing against your competitors, generating main image variants based on the audience feedback, and then testing those image variants against your target audience until you have a confident winner, and then retesting them against the same competitors. So this is a test, refine, iterate loop that you can run yourself. So enough of me. I will pass it over to John and Justin to tell a little bit about PickFu and get us started.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. Hi, I'm John. I'm one of the co-founders of PickFu, and we have Justin here, the other co-founder as well. We've known each other forever. We started PickFu in 2008 as a way to solve a problem that we had, which is how do we get really fast, unbiased feedback for our creative decisions? Since then we've grown in a bunch of different verticals and we've grown the team. You can see a picture of the team here at one of our recent team building events of Team Graffiti, which is super, super fun. We have a globally distributed team and we are really focused on helping businesses of all kinds make better, more confident decisions with real consumer insights. Next slide, please. Awesome. So a little bit about PickFu if you haven't heard of PickFu before. What we do is that we are on-demand consumer research. We tap into a verified global panel of millions and millions of real consumers. It is self-service. You can go on the platform and run surveys with your target audience, micro-targeting within that giant panel to test your products, creatives, and ideas. And when I say targeting, I mean we have over 100 different demographic targeting traits. So if your target customer is a consumer, we probably have targeting that will fit your needs. When you run these really easy self-service surveys, you'll get very fast responses and you will get quantitative data plus detailed qualitative written feedback. So not only do you understand the what with the numbers, but you also understand the why behind the numbers. So that's a quick intro about PickFu. And with that, I'll hand it over to Justin to show you the playbook.
Great. So one of the great things about using PickFu and its rapid feedback is that you can do these really fast iteration loops. And so the best practice that we like to share about improving Amazon main images or any competitive main image is to first set a benchmark, test your image against your competitors to know how you stand in the marketplace. Then based off that feedback, you would create new iterations and then test those iterations against themselves. And then you would analyze the qualitative feedback that John mentioned. So it's always great to see, everyone always likes to see which one wins, but the real nuggets of information are actually in the qualitative feedback and the written responses that people give. And in that written feedback, you can actually directionally get new ideas for where to take your main image or your product design or whatever it is that you're testing. Once you do that a couple times, testing those iterations against each other, you're going to come up with a really good new version of it. And that's when you take it back to your competitors and you validate it and you make sure that you've actually made an improvement against the market. And so that's what we're going to talk about this process. We're going to talk about how to use it with the PickFu MCP. So I'm going to go over to here and talk a little bit about what an MCP is. So I hope some of you are using AI. The one that we like to use in the team is Claude. And what's nice about Claude is that you can use custom connectors like the PickFu MCP. And so what an MCP connector is, it stands for Model Context Protocol. And it's basically just a way for different services to talk to each other, namely allowing your AI chat, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, to chat with other services like PickFu, or maybe it's your project management, Asana, ClickUp, Linear, any of these things. So all of these services have now MCP connectors that allow the AI to chat and do things on your behalf. So it translates your natural language queries. So, find my latest Asana task or grab my latest PickFu survey into things that the computers can understand. And so what that allows you to do is from the comfort of your AI assistant, which may be Claude, you can now tap into the PickFu panel in a natural language kind of way without even coming to the website anymore. So I'm just going to show you I'm going to be hopping back and forth in the slides here, but I'm going to show you really quick if you're using Claude, how to set up the connector. So I'm just going to come over here to my Claude. And where you're going to go, these things change all the time. So if you're watching this recording in a month, it probably has changed. But currently, if you go to customize, there's going to be connectors here. You're going to see I've got a bunch of different connectors. You're going to go to add custom connector. You can call this PickFu, and you're going to type in mcp.pickfu.com/mcp. And we'll provide this information. And it's also in our documentation on the website. So I already have this set up. Once you do that, you're gonna have to connect to it. So you'll go over here, click connect. That's gonna take you to your PickFu account, and it's going to you'll have to be signed in, and then you're gonna have to authorize. It's gonna ask you to authorize something. It'll ask you to come back to Claude, and then you'll be authorized. And so basically, that's going to allow Claude or whatever your AI chat is to have essentially full access to your PickFu account. Now, there's all these different permissions here, and it'll ask you to do things. But if you want to preemptively change the permissions, you can do so here. So that's kind of the connection setup there. So hopping into the actual the playbook. So like I said, the first step is benchmarking you against your competition. And in the example that we have here, let's say that we're option D here. We're Bobo's protein bar, and we're competing against these three in the Amazon marketplace. So our best practice is to do this validation first, do this benchmark first, where you test your main image against your competition. Obviously, we see that we lost, but what we want to understand is actually why we lost. And so one of the beautiful things about PickFu is that we do get these written explanations that you can read through. And in the case now with the MCP, you can have the AI analyze those explanations and those written responses to figure out why did we lose and how are we going to improve. So I'm not going to do this part. We already ran this poll, which I'm just going to show you right here. What I'm going to show you here, though, are a couple things. One, we do pull out all the AI insights on the website. So these are the insights drawn from all the qualitative written responses. And I'll show you the written responses down here. And so you'll see that they're very detailed. Some people like to see the box. Some people like to see individual bars. So this is all really interesting feedback as you're understanding why people are selecting different main images. And this is going to be useful as we move on to the next step. So here's, I'm going to hop into a quick demo after I explain what we're going to do. But basically now we're going to take the responses from that survey. We're going to have Claude grab those written responses. We're going to have Claude analyze them and then figure out what next iterations we should work on. All right. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to go over here. And I know I'm not supposed to be checking the chat, but I'm looking at the chat. And yeah, it's not going to show up in the connectors. So you have to add it as a custom one. We're trying to get approval into the marketplace, but that does take some time with Claude. So you're going to have to click on the plus button, go to add custom connector, and then you're going to have to type it in here. And then just a reminder, everyone, you do need a PickFu account first, so you should go sign up for free there. So I'm going to say to Claude, so first of all, when you use a connector, you want to make sure that it's selected here. So I have all these other ones. They're all deselected for this purpose, but make sure that it's connected here. So grab this PickFu survey and analyze it. Okay, so what it's doing right now is it's using the PickFu MCP connector to grab the survey. It's going to get all the information and it's going to analyze the results. So one of the things it's doing right now is in the results that we send back to Claude, we're actually giving all the URLs of the images, and it's trying to read the images. And let's see if it's working. Never know what AI is going to do, so bear with me. Any questions I can address while we're waiting for this?
Justin, have you already talked about all the different things that the MCP can do?
Not yet. Yeah. So obviously it can grab the surveys. It can create new surveys, which I'm going to show you soon. It can adjust the surveys. It'll create it as a draft. Um, so let's hop in here first. So I grabbed all the data points, showing the results that we also can see on the PickFu website. But we're able to use Claude to dig into it here. Um, People like seeing box of the bars, people like seeing the nutrition call outs. The bar itself needs to be visible. So these are all common best practices that many of you are probably aware of from selling on Amazon. So it does have some recommendations. Let's see. Let me just make sure it can see the images. Can you extract the images and see them? Because it kind of failed before, so I just want to make sure that it can. Okay, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want the AI chat context to actually see the image, so that it has even more context. It's fine to read the written responses, but even better if the chat context like can actually see the image. So that's what it did with this extract images thing. So that's just going to make it a little bit better when we do the next step. Okay, so this is, yeah, we can tell that it's working now because it can describe all the images. Um, that's great, right? It's a single red bar on a white background, which is correct. So if we are Bobo's option D, help me create new variations based on the feedback. Oh, what just happened?
So is image generation something that's available in the MCP?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools out there for image generation, but we decided to bundle it in with the MCPs to open up this kind of capability where you're able to iterate on the creative assets that you're already testing using the feedback that we're giving you. So just to help you close the loop. Of course, if you have another image generation tool, maybe a different MCP connector, feel free to connect that in the chat, and then it can use that as well. But this is just so that it can end to end, we're able to do everything for you. All right, so it called out a few weaknesses of the reasons why we lost. Um, let's not address the brand name since there's not much we can do about that. But let's work on all these other things, um, making it look more appealing, show the call outs, nutritional call outs, and also show the box. Keep the Bobo's logo as is. Uh, yeah, let's do all of them. All right, so this will probably take a few seconds to generate the images. Any other questions? I see
I
that
just,
some people are already using AI to generate images.
yeah, I was curious if anyone wants to jump in the chat and answer what your current process is for testing different image options or generating new image directions. If you're using AI right now, what tools are you using? Feel free to hop in and share. Also, you might have mentioned this already, Justin, but just to clarify that the MCP works with not just Claude. So if you're using like a ChatGPT business plan instead, or Cursor or other AI tools, it will work with any MCP compatible tool. So you don't have to be using Claude.
Yeah, you don't have to be using Claude. I do we do recommend it because I think it is the easiest to set up and work with a lot of different tools. But yeah, if you're a little bit more technical, you might be using Cursor or Cloud Code even, and you can connect all of those, connect these connectors in there. Um, ChatGPT is a little bit more difficult to connect custom connectors, but hopefully that will change in the future. All right, so it's slowly making its way through. Let me see if I can show you a preview of what it did. So basically, it sent this prompt with the reference image URL. Um, I wonder if I could show you what it looks like. Okay, cool. So this is the first version with the box. Um, and let's see, the second one is in progress. So you can see that it's consistent with the branding. This is still the same Bobo's branding. It was able to keep the same bar, but generate a package which did not exist before. Um, and then let's take a look at this one. Okay, so this one's a little bit different with the packaging open, showing the individual bars inside. Got the nice 12 count here. Nutritional callouts. Um, maybe too many nutritional callouts, but uh, reinforcement learning. And let me see if I can get see the other one here, I think.
So with this tool, if you see something um, that you don't like in those images, the nice thing is that you can just chat with Claude to make adjustments, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so you can iterate on it. You know, sometimes it won't follow Amazon TOS. Just tell it to do so. You know, maybe remind it to use a white background. If you don't want to see 15 grams of protein 3 times on the box, tell it that you want to change that version of it. So you could definitely iterate in here before taking it to testing. So yeah,
Or
it's really
if you have brand guidelines, right? Like brand like very specific guidelines that you need to follow, this is a nice place to impose those here.
that's right. Yeah. Okay, so it did all of them. Yes. Let's create a ranked poll draft. Yeah, so that's a great point, John. So one of the benefits of using um, Claude or any AI chat, like having these connectors come into here is so that you know you're probably already doing a lot of your work in an AI chat. So whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, you're probably importing your brand guidelines. Maybe it has information about your sales, and so having all of that context is going to make the AI even better at analyzing the surveys and writing the surveys. And so that's a difference. Obviously, we have PickFu AI within our platform, but we're never going to have the context that your AI chat would have, or maybe the connectors that you're connected to, or the skills that you've created individually. So having that context in here is going to really improve how you analyze the PickFu polls and how you run new polls. Okay. All right. So moment of truth. Well, let's just click over and see if it set it up correctly. Fingers crossed on the live demo. Okay, cool. So we do have the original one. We have the new variants. Um, oh, this is very chocolatey here. And so that's all set up. And what I can do, actually, so this is on 50 people. I'm gonna go a step further. Um, can you adjust it to just 15 respondents, general audience? Just so that it's a little faster because I want to run this live. So one of the things, as I was mentioning, that you can do with the MCP is not only create these drafts, but also adjust them. It has full knowledge of all the different targeting traits that we have. So if your AI chat knows who your target audience is, it can then use the MCP to find the best match for it. So let me just go over here and refresh it. Okay, so we do see that it's now 15. Um, so publish a survey. It can publish the surveys. Um, and depending on how you set up your permissions, you know, you could always say allow once if you're always cautious, or you could do always allow. And if you do always allow, then whenever it feels like, or you tell it to publish, it will publish. And then these things will happen.
Live demos.
Yes, let's do always allow then. All right. Let me see if it did publish. I will publish it manually.
Human in the loop.
Can verify that it was working for me directly before this live demo, of course.
Yes. Yes.
If you ever want to file a bug with us or give suggestions, the MCP can do that. So I'll just say file a bug. Um, it does have a way to take your feedback. So let's see if that works. And yeah, that'll help us close the loop on any feedback that you have. If there's something's not working right, or if there's tools that you'd like to see, you can submit feedback through this. All right, so that's running. That should probably take a few minutes. So why don't we hop back to the slides? Okay, so this is the step that we just did. We analyzed the competitive tests. We made new image variants. Oh my God, what's going on? And then we set up a test to test the variants against actual consumers. And so this is this nice uh, symbiotic relationship between AI and humans. Is that with AI we're able to create a lot of creatives very quickly. But we still want to make sure that it still resonates with the humans who are our customers and who are the purchasers of our products. So being able to quickly create stuff without a designer and then test it against humans is going to make this whole process much faster. I will caveat that, by saying that obviously the AI generated images are not going to be perfect. I will caution that you probably shouldn't just take them as is and launch with them. You still want to work with a designer to clean things up, like that, weird 15 grams 3 times on the box. Probably not what you wanted, but very good for directional, stylistic, different directions. All right, so that's step three. Um, a few best practices I do want to call out, and there's some limitations to doing things with AI chats. Um, so right now, in most AI chats, like with like a Claude Web or even ChatGPT, any of these ones, you're not going to be able to upload images into the chat and then say, "Can you run a survey of that image?" There's a limitation where it is not able to read the image data and send it to an external connector. That's just a security thing that's in place right now on the AI models. So the best practice is to reference images with a publicly accessible URL. One that we like to use is this catbox.moe, which is a very non-commercial site, but it's very nice to just drag a image in. It'll give you a URL directly to that image. You could paste that into the chat, and then it will be able to interact with it a little bit better. And the reason why the first one worked is because we were sending back image URLs for it to read, and so dealing with image URLs is just always going to be easier for the AI chats. Um, Another limitation is right now you can't really ask Claude to check back or to monitor the poll for you. So you will have to go back to Claude, um, once the poll is done to either check on the status, or if it's done, you could ask it to pull the results. You could keep asking it to check if it's done, and it can keep tabs that way. But unless you use Claude Cowork to schedule something, like it's not going to be able to just monitor it natively. Um, and then the last thing that we touched on a little bit is that depending on how you set up your MCP permissions, you could have it always confirm before launching. If you say always allow, it will publish it if it feels that you intended it to be published. So just uh, be cautious on how you set up that permission there. Okay, let's see. Let's move on. Um, let's see. Other things that you could test with PickFu. John, you want to cover these?
Sure. Yeah. So beyond just images, there's a ton of other things that you can test with PickFu for your e-commerce listings. So obviously your titles and bullet points, you can test the rewrites against current listing copy, work with AI to generate new versions and so on. One particularly interesting use case is bullet points, like coming up with bullet points and running ranked polls on bullet points, because that's a really nice way of getting consumer feedback to getting consumers to actually rank which claims in your bullet points are the most compelling. Other things for listings, you can test A plus content and infographics. Our survey builder does support native A plus content layouts. So you can use our survey builder, add your A plus content. It'll render it nicely in that vertical format that the consumers, the shoppers would see. Obviously, with your brand, you can test logos and packaging. This is one of the most powerful use cases of PickFu because these are things that you often do not change very often. So really getting the right message across with your logo and your packaging and really validating it with your target audience is super important. Obviously, when you're coming into market with new products, you want to be testing names and taglines. Obviously, the first name is not, the first name that you pick is probably not the best one. We tested over 30 names when we were naming PickFu on PickFu many, many years ago. We've been very happy with the results since. So you definitely want to pressure test those names. The An underrated use of PickFu is testing ads. So if you are putting money behind paid spend, and I'm sure many of you are, it is massively important that you make sure that you validate those creatives so that you get better ROAS, like better return on that ad spend. Running small, quick tests on PickFu of those creatives can really help hone the message that you're sending. Because oftentimes with ads, you might just get clicks, but you might be able to see the performance with clicks and in your budget, but you don't really understand the message that that ad may be sending out there. And so you might have a mismatched message from your ads, even if it might be the one that gets the most clicks. Really nice way to validate that ad messaging before you put a lot of spend behind it. And obviously, with concepts, when you want to come out with new product ideas, PickFu is an amazing way to sanity check those ideas and get feedback before you need to commit additional resources for design and particularly for sourcing. I mean, we've had numerous Amazon sellers come to us and say, well, not only have you made me more money, you've also saved me money because I've tried testing different product ideas on PickFu, realized that I could not sell it for the price that I needed to make a profit, and therefore decided to scrap the idea altogether, saving all that time and headache that would have come otherwise. So here's 6 things here, a lot of different things that you can test on PickFu besides just the main image here.
Cool. Let me just hop back and see where we are. So we can see there's 9 responses here. And let me just show, can you check on the survey? So it should be able to grab the same status. Oh, now it's up to 10.
Just to set expectations on timing, usually, like we're running a small sample size, 15-person survey, general audience, which typically will come back within about 15 minutes, hopefully. If you obviously run against larger sample sizes, it could take longer. Usually most tests that people run will finish within a couple of hours. Obviously, it depends on how niche your targeting is and all of that. So
Cool. Yeah, so it actually was 10. Yeah, let me move on to this the final couple slides. So the next step in that iterative process that we were talking about, it would be to analyze the results. And so you could see that even as we were pulling it, it started to see some of the trends in the results. And so you can have the AI assistant to continue to analyze, figure out if there's other opportunities to test out. Maybe you'll find that the box doesn't work, or people like to see the ingredients, and maybe you want to lean into that a little bit more. So maybe you do a few more variations, or maybe you combine them. Maybe you did one variation that had the ingredients, one had the box, and let's make another one that has the best of both of those things. And so the testing should never just be one and done. You want to read through the responses and figure out, is there something more that I can do? Is there something more that I can improve? Because now is always going to be the best time to make these changes. You don't want to have to launch and then see negative feedback in the reviews or just have lower performance. So keep iterating, and then you can validate against your competition. And so that's typically what the last step is that once you've done this a few times, you've read the responses, you've kind of pivoted your direction maybe a couple times, tried a few different variations. Once you find a really good winner that you're happy with, and typically that's around the 70% of votes threshold, then I would take that new variation and then retest it against those same competitors that we started with. And so the whole point being that now we're going to revalidate um, the performance and show that there should be a relative improvement over the baseline. And so even if you don't beat your top three competition that you started with, if you show a relative improvement, that means you're going to be taking away market share in the competitive landscape that is Amazon or Walmart or wherever you're selling. And so we're just trying to show incremental improvement here. Um, and typically that is what we see. And I'll show you an example of, as we ran the process, here's a variation that we had. Um, and if you remember, we were very low with just a single bar. But as you start to iterate based off the feedback, a lot of people wanted to see the box and the nutritional counts and all the call outs and all that kind of stuff. As you start adding that in, it does improve the performance against the competition, even against some of these quite large brands. Um, so let me go back to the slides. Let me just check one more time. We're still at 10. Um, do you want to open it up for Q&A and then we can circle back in a couple minutes when it's done?
Sure. If anyone has any questions about this process, about what you can do with MCP, anything that you're confused by, feel free to jump in.
And I'll
If
start the
not,
chat.
I can ask a few, or John
Yeah,
can.
sure. Well, I think it would be interesting, Adrian, like on the marketing side, if you've seen or used PickFu for any interesting marketing related use cases.
Yeah, I do. I actually, for things like this, like if we're running an event or a webinar, I do use PickFu to test like different headlines, titles, branding, like or collateral. We were just at a conference last month and we used PickFu to test different booth backdrop options, so different artwork to see which one people like the most. So that was super cool. um, a lot of like ad concepts, social post images. We've even had people, we see this like fairly often, which is funny. We've had people test like their LinkedIn headshots with
Yeah.
PickFu and see which one like stands out more. So that's an interesting use case. We use it for a lot of fun stuff among the team also, just answering random questions. There are a ton of marketing use cases for it. So that's typically where we see a lot of marketing teams, creative teams, obviously, as well as product teams using it. And yeah, we're always using it internally. Um, I guess one thing to call out too, and maybe we can show it, Justin, is you can ask Claude to use the MCP to, if you have a lot of PickFu surveys, you can have it
Mm,
analyze multiple surveys from the
yep.
past and like extract themes across similar tests. So say you've been testing like one product's rebrand or one campaign or something over like several weeks, and you want to understand where things stand and like what you should do next, you can ask Claude to analyze all of the results and recommend next steps from there. You can also ask it to pull the full list of audience targeting traits in PickFu. So if you want to figure out like who you should be targeting, who closely matches your audience, it can list everything and it can recommend like combinations that you should try to get the best results and the most relevant feedback. We do have a question. What is the image generation model that is built into the PickFu MCP?
Yeah, good question. So currently it's Google Gemini Nano Banana 2. So it's the latest one from Gemini. So you can use that if you have a Google Gemini subscription. We're constantly reevaluating to see which model we should be using. So, we will be evaluating the latest OpenAI image model as well. But we like the so far we like the consistency of Nano Banana being able to take existing reference images and stay true to you see that the Boba's protein logo is consistent across all of them, or the fact that it can keep the bar intact. And so It's been quite reliable up to this point.
We could also try, since we're kind of stuck on 10 right now, we can ask Claude to summarize the results of this one so far and
Yeah,
recommend like maybe what we should consider doing next.
let's analyze the results so far and figure out next steps.
We do have another question also. Will I need a subscription to Nano Banana, or are there limits on the image generation?
You will not. This is all tied in with your PickFu subscription or PickFu account, and there's no cost to using it at this time. Um, as we're developing the tools, it is free to use. Hopefully, in conjunction with running your PickFu polls and creating new variations. So you don't need any external subscriptions to use it. Okay, so it says it's liking C and D, and for reference, that's here. So let me just pick one of them. Um, I'm gonna pick D. Let's just pick D and rerun competitive tests against the original three competitors. Let's see if it remembers it correctly.
Too long.
B. All right, it works.
All right, let's take a look. Oh, all right. It's publishing it. Uh, it's publishing it because I did give it always allow. Um, but yeah, we are still hitting that same issue. So let me just take a look at it. Cool. So these are the same three competitors that we started the baseline with. Here's a new one. So if we were to retest it, I'm sure we'll see an improvement just like we did in this one.
Hmm.
So, obviously the AI will create different variations. Nothing is ever going to be the same. So, like John said, like you'll want to chat with Claude and keep iterating on these things before you actually test. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the end-to-end loop. Um, like starting from a competitive baseline of your product against your competition, and then iterating on variations, and then revalidating it against the competition.
We have a couple other upcoming webinars walking through other use cases for the MCP. So if you go to that URL, I'll drop it in the chat as well, lumen.com/pickfu-events. We have one next week around planning your research. So if you just have a vague goal or something that you want to try, like a product rebrand or competitive analysis, we'll be walking through a few different use cases than what we shared here today and how to run that using the MCP. Because the good thing about the MCP and using AI to assist in your research process is that you don't have to be a research expert. Anyone can use it to run tests, run solid research themselves without relying on, research pros or paying a ton of money for an agency to do it for you. So we're going to be walking through that next. And then our final webinar in the series is going to be around analyzing all of your survey results with Claude and AI tools. So if you have a bunch of PickFu tests that you want to take a look at and figure out what to do with all the results without manually reading every response, then that will be a good session for you to join. Feel free to reach out anytime. We're around. We'd love your feedback. Here to answer anything you have. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll hopefully see
All
you
right.
next time.